Hello, Namaskara. My name is Girish Chandra, and I'm hoping to take a few minutes to talk about some important details from Mahabharata. Uh, I have I have to confess in advance that the details covered here are something that I found when I was doing my homework or research about Mahabharata as Kurukshetra, especially the war on Kurukshetra. During our discussion, someone asked me a question as to, since the war involved such a large number, how did people plan for food and other logistics? And I was trying to answer or provide my perspective as to what may have happened. And I was telling one of the discussion members, in the Gita discussion members, that when a war is waged, not the whole army will go into the war. They take portions of the army, pieces of the army to go into the war. What are those pieces? What are the sizes of these pieces is where the discussion started. And then I thought, let's look at the war as a whole. Let's look at what may have happened during the war. And this homework that I have done is based on a website that has focused on researching on Mahabharata or Kurukshetra war, the war logistics there. So the accuracy is something that I may not be able to confirm. The link is I will leave the link in the description later. For now, let's look at what went through in the Kurukshetra war of Mahabharata. How was the army arranged? For example, in the initial shlokas of Bhagavad Gita, it's mentioned clearly, Drishtva tu Pandavanikam Vyudham Duryodanastada Acharyamupasangamya Raja Vachanam Abhravit Pashyetam Panduputranam Acharya Mahatin Chamum. So there is a mention of Anikini and Chamu in the first few verses of Bhagavad Gita, first few shlokas of Bhagavad Gita. So it helps to know what is this Anikini and what is this Chamu. What are we talking about here? So with that in context, let's take a look at some numbers, some details of Mahabharata war, some of which was new to me and some of which could be new to you also. So let's take a look. First, formation of the armies in the battlefield. Most of us know what are the components of an army or a force in a war: elephants, chariots, horses, and foot soldiers. And most of us are familiar with this. This is called Chatur Anga, 4 angas of a war: elephants, chariots, horses, and soldiers. Chaturanga in the current form has become Chaduranga, which is chess. It has elephants in the form of Ratha, which is now in the modern chess, it is Rook. Gaja, which is the bishop in chess, but actually it's the elephants in old Indian Chaduranga. Ashwa is still the horse. Bhata, along with one Raja and one Mantri. Bhata is the foot soldier. So these are the components of a war, or the pieces of the war. So elephant, chariot, horses, and foot soldiers. The count of these, there was name. For example, Patti. One Patti was 1 elephant, 1 chariot, 3 horses, and 5 soldiers. So the ratio was 1:1:3:5. If 10 people or 10 components of a army went, it's called a Patti. So 1 elephant, 1 chariot, 3 horses, 5 soldiers made my Patti. Senamukha was 3 times the Patti. That is 3 elephants, 3 horses, 3 chariots, 9 horses, and 15 foot soldiers. A total of 30 component was a Senamukha. Gulma was 3 times the Senamukha. So 9 elephants, 9 chariots, 27 horses, and 45 foot soldiers. A total of 90 components made a Gulma. Gana, 270 force, 27 elephants with a rider, chariots, horses, and foot soldiers made a Gana. Vahini was a total of 810 forces there. Pruthana was 2,430 forces. So each of them is 3 times the previous one. 3 times of Vahini is Pruthana. Chamu is 7,290. So this was the chunk, this was the piece of force that would go for a war at a time. And this is the piece that Duryodhana described in Mahabharata when he says Mahatim Chamum. So he saw in front of him around 7,290 is what he thought was the force that Pandavas were using. Whereas Pandavas had a larger crowd waiting behind and getting ready for the war. Over Sanjaya could see around 21,870 involved in the war, whereas Duryodhana, being in the battlefield, could kind of visualize around 7,219. So from Duryodhana's point, he was looking at Mahatim Chamum, which is the piece of the force that was coming towards for the war. Anikini is Sanjaya's perspective that he provided to Dhritarashtra. So Anikini, Drishtva to Pandavanikam. So most of us know the word Akshohini. Anikini is 3 times Chamu. Akshohini is 10 times Anikini. So Akshohini will have 21,870 elephants, 21,870 chariots, 65,610 horses, and 109,350 foot soldiers. Total of 218,700 in the force would make it a Akshohini. So Akshohini, so for more details, go on Mahabharata research.com. They have done a good job looking into these details. So Akshohini is what is the count that was involved in Mahabharata. Depending on the enemy size, the for protecting the minister, usually a patti could go. To protect the queen, sometimes Senamukha could go. To wage a small war, a Gulma could go. So depending on the requirement, a specific set of forces were sent. It's always a multiple of 3 there. So how many Akshohinis did Pandavas have? We all know there were 7 Akshohinis with Pandavas and 11 Akshohinis with Kauravas. So what does 7 Akshohini mean? 1,530,900 in the overall force. I'm using the word force because it involves elephants, chariots, horses, and foot soldiers. The Kauravas had around 2,405,700. It was a difference of 874,800 in terms of the force that Kauravas had. So by numerical number, Kauravas should have easily won against the Pandavas. But Pandavas had one major advantage that the Kauravas did not have, and no points for guessing that, which is Krishna. Pandavas had Krishna, Pandavas had Arjuna, Bhima. These were Bhishma Drona Pramukataha, Bhima Arjuna Samayudhi, that's the word Duryodhana uses. So Bhima and Arjuna were good enough to destroy a majority of these people. So even though the difference between the 2 armies was as close to 1 million, it was still the Pandavas were feared. So there was a fear that was running in Duryodhana's heart the moment the war started. Till then, he was very confident. Duryodhana says, Madharte tekta jivitaha. They have come here to die for me. That's the word he uses. So there was an insecurity that was developed in Duryodhana at the start of the war, even though he had a larger force. So out of 3,936,600 people, how many survived? Only 12 people survived. Total killed were 3,936,588 people in 18 days. Such a sad reality. 218,699 people were killed each day, out of which Bhishma himself killed 10,000, which is 100,000 people were killed by Bhishma himself across 10 days that he fought the war. At the time of this war, 45 million was the estimated population of Bharata, out of which 8.75% of the people were killed. What is the magnitude of this? Based on Mahabharata research.com, the World War II, which was the huge war, lost around 1% of the population. So imagine what was the size of this war. That's why it's called Mahabharata. So these details are academic details, but good to know. Good to know these things. So there was a huge difference between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. This is just the arrangement of the Kaurava army. What did the 11 Akshohinis have? Bhagadattas, Shalya, Karna, Kritavarma, Jayadratha, Sudakshina, Vinda, Anuvinda, Srutavyudha, Shakuni, Sushruma, Duryodhana. Everyone included is around 11 Akshohinis. But what is very, very important or very interesting to see here is both Kauravas and Pandavas were supposed to have 9 Akshohinis each. Out of the 9 Akshohinis, 2 Akshohinis came from the Pandavas side to the Kaurava side. One was Shalya, the other was Yadavas of Sri Krishna's Narayani Sena. Shalya was coming for the war with his 1 Akshohini to join the Pandavas. But midway, he was cheated by Duryodhana. Duryodhana provides hospitality to Shalya, so Shalya is obligated to offer his 1 Akshohini to Duryodhana. So the 1 Akshohini from Shalya, from Madra, who was the uncle of Sahadeva and Nakula, he was supposed to join the Pandavas, but he was cheated to join the Kauravas. That's one. The second, how did the Yadava 1 Akshohini join Duryodhana's army? We all know the story between Arjuna and Duryodhana going to Krishna and seeking help. Arjuna sought only Krishna, not the Narayani Sena. So the Narayani Sena came to the Kauravas. So at the start, both of them were supposed to have 9 and 9, but there was an imbalance mainly due to Duryodhana's Rajakiya. He did some politics. He cheated Shalya, and with Krishna, Arjuna chose Krishna instead of the Narayani Sena. So, and that too, there was a condition that Krishna would not even lift his weapon. This becomes important later when he tries to attack Bhishma. So Krishna would not even lift the weapon, or you can have Narayani Sena. So Duryodhana chose Narayani Sena. So Kaurava's size became 11 Akshohini. Pandava's size remained 7 Akshohini with Satyaki, Kuntiboja, Drishtaketu, Sahadeva, Drupada, Virata, and Malyadhwaja. These were the different Akshohinis, the kingdoms who brought their armies for fight. So the 7 Akshohinis and the 11 Akshohinis of Kauravas and the Pandavas. Now, there was some rules of arrangement that were set for the war. In the current warfare, none of this are followed. People would start the war after sunrise and stop the war right upon sunset. After that, they can go to each other, talk to each other. They would mingle, they party over the night, and then next day they fight again. So this is a concept that is very difficult to digest in the modern world. There are other things here. All these rules were broken after day 10. Day 10 is when Bhishma was there. As long as Bhishma was the commander-in-chief, both the parties followed the rules. As soon as Bhishma went down, all these rules were broken. The first rule that was broken was on day 12 or day 12 or 13, when Abhimanyu was killed. After that, all these rules became they went to the drain. So these were some rules of engagement as to how the war will be fought. So Mahabharata, this is one portion that I am not very comfortable. I am I haven't done much homework about, but this was on the very good website, mahabharataresearch.com. So I'm throwing it here for information, because this was new to me also. Mahabharata supposedly lists around 18 battle formations or vyuhas, and you can see them here. The vyuhas are formed based on the challenge offered by the opposition. The opposition, let's say, throws a krauncha. Let's say the Kauravas bring a krauncha vyuha. The Pandavas have to bring a vyuha that can cut that vyuha. So the formations were based on challenges. One party will challenge. Now, you know what? We have this vyuha. Now we've challenged you. And these people will take the challenge and fight to break that vyuha. Sometimes they succeed, sometimes they don't. So each vyuha, there are some examples provided here. For example, on the 6th day of the war, Pandavas had Makara vyuha because the Kauravas decided to use Krauncha vyuha. How the vyuhas are broken is the plan is like this, but they may not always be able to execute it exactly like that. Whichever army is successful, again, the war is waged only from rise to sunset. The moment the sunset happens, whatever the vyuha is, wherever people are, they have to suspend the war and they go back to their respective camps. So whoever makes the best of this vyuha is the winner of that day. So each day had a specific winner. So there are many examples provided in the website: Mandala vyuha, Vajra vyuha, Makara vyuha, and I forgot the name of this one. So Ardhachandra vyuha or something like that. This is Shakta vyuha, Sarvatomukha vyuha, Shuchimukha vyuha, Chakra vyuha. We have heard of Chakra vyuha a lot. So we know about Chakra vyuha, but these are some examples as to how the armies were formed, how the forces were organized in order to wage the war. This is a very interesting fact about what happened in the war. Who are the leaders of the war? For the Kauravas, Bhishma led for 10 days. He was the leader. He was the Senapati for the Kauravas. Once Bhishma, he went on Shaya, Drona took over for 5 days, Karna for 2 days, Shalya for half a day, Ashwatthama for half a day. In fact, Shalya and Ashwatthama, very small portion of their days, they were leaders. However, for Pandavas, there was only one leader, was Drishtadhyumna, but the Pandava army was led by Arjuna and Bhima. They would take the leadership role, even though the strategy was done by Drishtadhyumna. Who survived the wars? From the Pandavas, the 5 Pandavas survived: Krishna, Satyaki, Yujutsu, Drishtaketu. From the Kaurava side, Kritavarma, Ashwatthama, and Kripacharya survived. The 18 days of the war. On day 1, Pandavas used Vajra vyuha, other things. These are some things that I don't know much about because I haven't read Mahabharata, but these are some details that I picked up from my homework. Nothing huge happened, but this was the day where Bhishma was really brutal. He absolutely destroyed the Pandava army. Most of us know Bhishma had promised that he will not kill the Pandavas, but he will kill 10,000 soldiers per day, 10,000 of the forces per day, which was not satisfactory for Duryodhana, because he wanted the Pandavas, not the army. And the second condition from Bhishma was, as long as he was leading the war, Karna cannot be part of the war. So those things actually irritated Duryodhana a lot, but he had no choice because Bhishma was the leader and he couldn't let go of Bhishma. So at the end of day 1, Yudhishthira was absolutely distraught. He was so pained by the loss of his soldiers that Krishna had to come and kind of soothe him. Second day, again, similarly, Drona beat Drishtadhyumna, and Bhima rescued Drishtadhyumna on that day. And Bhima was absolutely ferocious in this war. So the Second day belonged to the Pandavas. The third day again belonged to the Kauravas. This is when, the details are all there. Day belonged to the Kauravas. That's mostly what we need to look at. Day 4 is a very interesting day that many of us will not know, that Bhishma had organized Chakravyuha and challenged the Pandavas. Abhimanyu even entered the Chakravyuha and he fought inside, but right at the right time, Arjuna and Bhima came into the Chakravyuha and destroyed the Kauravas. On this day, around 8 of Dhritarashtra's children were killed on this day. So Bhima was brutal on this day, and this was the day that belonged to the Pandavas. So if you see, the days were alternating between the Kauravas, Pandavas, Kauravas, Pandavas. The next day they come and fight at a different level. So on day 5, it was a mixed reaction. Both of them suffered heavy losses, but still the Maharathis are still fighting. So again, this day 6 belonged to the Kauravas. Day 7 again belonged to the Kauravas. So day 5 supposedly defeat of the Kauravas. Day 6, day 7 belonged to the Kauravas. Day 8 is when Bhima again killed 17 of Dhritarashtra's children. Again, Bhima killed all the 100 children of Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. That's the reason Dhritarashtra was very angry for 2 reasons, especially for cutting open Dushasana's chest and drinking his blood, and also by hitting Duryodhana on his thigh and killing him. At the same time, because Bhima also killed all the 100 plus children of Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. Day 9 is when the most beautiful incident of the exchange between a Bhakta and a Bhagavan happened, where Bhishma would have said that during the war, I will somehow make you lift the weapon. So Krishna, to bless his devotee, who is Bhishma, actually lifted the weapon and came attacking Bhishma. And Bhishma surrendered, because there is nothing anybody can do if Krishna comes to attack. But that was Krishna's blessing for Bhishma, because Bhishma is about to leave this world. So he grants his wishes and lifts the weapon, which is a wheel. He goes to attack Bhishma, mainly because Arjuna was not fighting with heart. So next day is when Bhishma fell. That's when he went on the Shayasana. We know the story of how Shikandi came in front, and then according to the Kauravas, the Pandavas cheated and killed Bhishma. So this was a huge day for the Pandavas and Kauravas, because it came with not the death but the fall of Bhishma. Day 11, in a way, was a happy day for Duryodhana, because his belief was, if Karna came to the battlefield, his victory is guaranteed. But that was not to be. The plan was, now Drona became the leader. So Drona decided that, you know what, instead of killing so many, let's arrest Yudhishthira and finish this one. So Drona consistently made plans to arrest Yudhishthira, but arresting Yudhishthira was near to impossible as long as Arjuna and Bhima were protecting him. And again and again, they came and rescued Yudhishthira and the Pandavas, Arjuna and Bhima. On day 13 is when we all know about the story of Chakravyuha and Abhimanyu. On this day, Arjuna could not come back on time, because he was some saptakasa, or I don't know the exact pronunciation of that. In English, I should not read. Some saptakas, it says, I have to get that name right anyway. They take Arjuna away from the battlefield, and Drona forms the Chakravyuha, and Abhimanyu enters the Chakravyuha. and Jayadratha blocks the Pandavas. We know this story, the boon that Jayadratha had from Shiva or Brahma as to defeat or kill the Pandavas, but he cannot have the boon to kill the Pandavas, but he can block the Pandavas on one day, but he cannot block Arjuna. So Arjuna was taken away, so Jayadratha was able to block all the other 4 Pandavas. So nobody could go and rescue Abhimanyu, and Abhimanyu was killed in a very brutal way by multiple yodhas like Drona, Ashwatthama, Kritavarma, Karna, Duryodhana, Shakuni, and Dushasana, and others involved in kind of ganging up against Abhimanyu and killing him. So this was a very painful day in the war. So on day 13, Abhimanyu was killed. On day 14, Ghatotkach was killed. So the son of Arjuna is killed on day 13, and the son of Bhima is killed on day 14. The stories of Ghatotkach is very, very interesting in itself. We can talk about that. So on day 15 is when the Ashwatthama Hataha iti Kunjaraha Daro, that story we all know of how Yudhishthira told the lie in order to kill the Drona. Drishtadyumna came out of his chariot and chopped Drona's head. Very painful day, and this is when that happened. So on day 14, one more very important was Arjuna taking the vow that he will kill Jayadratha. If not, he will commit suicide. And we also know how Krishna again rescued the Pandavas and Arjuna from that. So day 15 is done. Day 15, Drona is killed. So day 16, Karna becomes the leader. And again, Karna tries to wage a very legal or ethical battle, but he gets chastised by Duryodhana. This is the day, on the first day, where Karna takes over. Bhima kills Dushasana in a very, very gory way. He rips apart Dushasana's chest and drinks his blood and kills him, and takes that blood and gives it to Draupadi. So all that story we probably know. So the Karna became the leader for 2 days. So on day 17, Karna was killed, again according to the Kauravas, by cheating, where Arjuna shot Karna when he was not on his chariot. So that was the death of Karna. And on the last day, Shalya becomes the leader, and he is also killed. Duryodhana goes and hides in the lake. All that story we know. And there is the fight where Bhima breaks the thigh of Duryodhana, and Duryodhana is killed. And Ashwatthama goes and kills the Upapandavas, the children of Pandavas, and also Ashwatthama. That story also we know. And the curse on Ashwatthama. All the other stories happen on day 18, where Parikshit is also rescued by Krishna. That is a separate story. On day 18 days of the war, saw some really, really painful death of a lot of great warriors. And this was the making of Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra. We all know that. So who survived? We looked at that later. The last slide is where I just wanted to finish with this, which is Mahabharata is very special, especially the war. Kurukshetra war is very special because it is sandwiched between 2 exceptional works. One is Srimad Bhagavad Gita before the war, and Sri Vishnu Sahasranama after the war, which is why Sri Shankara says, Geyam Gita Nama Sahasram. So you have to use both. And this is the sandwich where the top bread is Bhagavad Gita and the bottom bread is Vishnu Sahasranama. Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Lord. Vishnu Sahasranama is of the Lord or about the Lord, which is sanctioned by the Lord for the benefit of the society. So Bhagavad Gita and Vishnu Sahasranama stands between whatever happens in the world. Any fight that we are having here is between the Lord and his names. Nothing else matters. The end result is Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanuddaraha, Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutihi, Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. That is the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. So, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, the names of Sri Krishna comes in Vishnu Sahasranama. With that, I will conclude this short presentation. I tried to make it as short as I could, but wanted to share some of the details that I found on the internet. It's none of mine. Please go on mahabharataresearch.com and find more information if you are interested. With that, I stop this presentation. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,